Hello, welcome to the lesson that's all about consequences and how to deal with those pesky students that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So when I first started teaching, I had a set amount of consequences. I had, you get a warning, you do this, and then you go to the principal. And although those sounded great, what I found was it does not work with every student. Those consequences don't work. Even with my own kids, I can put one in timeout and they're devastated, but the other one is, happy for the time by herself. Different kids they're just different. But you do need to kind of have a set documentation of what to expect. Okay? So it may be a warning first, and then there is, one or two other different disciplines, and then the ultimate, send them to the principal. However, if you're anything like me, I went through stages where the principal was like, don't send them to me. I don't want them, kind of thing. And it was almost looked bad upon if I sent them to the principal. And I even had another fax teacher write me and say that, the principal says that they don't want them. So, you kind of had to figure out how to handle it in your own classroom. So the very first thing you can do is display it. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm expecting from you. You can put it in the syllabus. You can put it on a poster board. Just have it displayed or talk to the students about what's going to happen, what they can expect. Now, consequences have to be followed through. It will not work if you do not follow through. If you do not use these consequences, the kids are going to test you, and they're going to try to see whether or not you are going to follow through or not. And so it's very, very important that you always follow through. Don't just keep giving warning after warning after warning after warning, because ultimately that stresses you out and it's doing no good towards you. You're going to have a discipline problem if all you do is warn your kids. Another thing I'd like to say is to document it. And in the downloads in this lesson, you're going to have a documentation on, what you've done for kids. So you kind of have an idea of what stopped a behavior, if that makes sense. You can kind of go through and say, oh, well, Johnny did this, and it stopped it. So I'm going to use that behavior, that consequence with that child. The last thing I'm going to give you is some options for consequences, things that worked well with me. And so I thought I'd give you all of these things so you can kind of decide on your own what would work well. The first off is you always give kids a warning. Always. A lot of times they're just messing around and they like to see how far they can get to that line. They're just testing the waters, basically. So give them that warning. But then you can do different things. You can pull the student aside and talk to the student. You can separate the student. Something that I found, if you're doing an activity, something or like a lesson or something that I have found very beneficial over the years is separating the students. Putting them over by themselves really stops a lot of the behavior. Another thing that I have done throughout the years is I have a letter written, and they have to simply copy it down. In this letter, it talks about how they have disrupted class, and they have and that has hurt their friends' learning, and has hurt their learning, and how it is being rude to the teacher. And they just basically have to copy this letter down. And basically, it's just a little bit of a punishment, I guess. But I've also put that in the downloads. If you want to use that you're more than welcome to. Sometimes if they're in a food lab and they're horsing around or they're not doing their job, the best thing you can do is just pull them from that lab and give them an alternate assignment. So if you have one ready, you can just open up the book and, find a chapter and say, read this and do the questions. And that kind of stops a lot of the horseplay in labs and big group projects, because they don't want to be pulled from their friends or their group. So lastly, you can send them to the principal. I did have one principal that allowed us to just send them to the office but not get in trouble, just basically like a timeout, which is kind of a PBS buddy room system, where you could send them to the office and they could stay there for 10 minutes, and then you can call them back and come and have them get back in class. But make sure if you do that, you're always talking to the student to try to correct the behavior. So that's it. That's all I have for this, and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye.